And now I invite you, Dwight, to address the class of 2015.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's going to shorten my speech, though. It's perfect. It is truly a pleasure to be here. I am actually on Humber's campus once a year because you guys help us out with the Toronto Children's Breakfast Club, and we get to hold our bike rodeo in your parking lot here. So I'm here once a year, so thank you for that. I'm putting on the glasses not because I want to look more studious, it's because I need them. So here we go. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Governors for selecting me to receive this honor. I've been very fortunate in my life and career to receive a few honors, but this is my first honorary degree, so thank you to Humber. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I spent a lot of time encouraging young people to do exactly what you have done, pursue a post-secondary education. I've probably done some motivational speeches at some of your public schools or high schools. You know, they say knowledge is the foundation that everything else is built on, and education has taken me from public housing to the public broadcaster. You know, yes, thank you very much. When I stood on the stage at the Canadian Screen Awards this year and accepted that award for Best Local Newscast on the behalf of my incredible CBC Toronto news team, I thought about all the kids growing up in neighborhoods like I did, and I wanted to let them know that, you know, you could use education to fulfill your dreams. And every time I accept an award, I also think about my mother, and that was her thing. You know, you have to stay in school if you want to make it in this country, because she really saw the promise and opportunity in Canada. And I take great pride in the pride she now feels from seeing her children all grow up to be positive, contributing members of this society. And it wasn't easy, but as they say, nothing worth having ever is. My story starts the way a lot of immigrant stories do, with a leap of faith. My mom came here in the early 70s to seek a better life, and the irony is that she had to leave us back in Jamaica to come here and get a start for herself. I was lucky. I was left with a great aunt and uncle in the country, wonderful retired couple. He was a retired police chief. She was the local English teacher. We lived in this rural community, a truly bucolic setting. I had a peaceful childhood. I had my own donkey to ride around the sugarcane plantation. It was lovely. If I was hungry, I'd just walk over to a tree and pick a mango or pick a grapefruit or something. But when I got to Canada, that was something I didn't understand. Why did you have trees with no fruit? Like, it made no sense to me. The maple leaves were beautiful and everything, but where was the fruit? I wasn't that happy when I learned I was moving to Canada. The only thing I knew about Canada was that it was cold. And one Christmas, my mom sent me a gift. She sent me a Viewmaster. You guys know what that is? It looks like binoculars, and you click the slides, right? So she sent me this Viewmaster, and I had never seen pictures like that before. These incredible pictures of Canada. And Canada was out of this world to me when I looked at these slides, literally. The one thing that I found a little disconcerting, though, was the guy with the pointy ears. And you know what I learned later? Those weren't pictures of Canada. Those were Star Trek slides my mom had sent me. Yeah, we had no electricity, no TV, so I didn't know what Star Trek was. And I ran around the whole community and said, hey, look at these pictures of Canada. Yeah, it was quite funny, you know. And at a young age, I think I developed a love of reading and writing because we didn't have television. Now it's kind of funny that I actually read on TV when I didn't see TV until I was like 8 years old. So Jamaica and Canada share a long history. I heard there's a few Jamaican graduates out there today. Did you know our first Prime Minister of Canada, John A. Macdonald, his wife was a Jamaican immigrant to Canada, Lady Agnes, yes. The Bank of Nova Scotia, we had Bank of Nova Scotia in Kingston, Jamaica, before we had one here in Toronto. Our national dish, half of it is from Newfoundland cod, and if you look at a bottle of Newfie Screech, you will see that it says bottled in Appleton, Jamaica, which is the town that I lived in when I was in Jamaica, and I followed that rum route all the way to Canada. And as Bob Marley said, you know, I landed in this concrete jungle, and it was quite the shock to the system. I came from a community where all the police officers did was play dominoes on the veranda of the police station. We had one thief in town, so if anything went missing, we knew exactly where to go, right? And then I land in this, what they considered at the time, the most infamous neighborhood in the country. A place where I had customers before I even knew what the product was. I would walk out of my building and people would say, hey man, you got a dime? You know, you got a nickel? A quarter? And I'm like, I get $1 a week for allowance. I cannot afford to give you dimes and nickels and quarters. And then the kids started laughing at me. He's like, dude, they're not asking you for change. They want dime bags, nickel bags. I'm like, what? I had no idea what was going on. And that was the problem in the neighborhood, that if I wanted to be a drug dealer, this job was there for me before I even knew what it really was about. And it was tough when we first got here, because they would do drug sweeps through the neighborhood, and, I would be playing marbles, and 8 and 9 years old, you'd be up against the wall getting patted down, looking for drugs. And I look back at all the crazy things that I experienced growing up, and I think about, I had some real, Dwight, what were you thinking moments in my childhood in that neighborhood? Once my mom sent me to the store to buy milk, and we used to have $2 bills back in the old days. Were you guys around for $2 bills? Yes, remember those $2 bills? My mom sent me to buy milk. I was crossing the street, and this guy, older, bigger than me, decided he was going to take that $2. But I was more afraid of my mom than I was of this guy. And I'm like, dude, I'm not giving you my $2. And he picked me up, and he threw me through a window, right? And I went back outside and started playing later. We had shootings in our neighborhood. We'd be playing street hockey. I was the goalie. I thought it was Mike Palmatier. Anybody know Mike Palmatier? Okay. Every time I'd make a save, I'd say Palmatier. And this guy came running through our game. We're like, what are you doing? And another guy started chasing him and shooting at him with us in the middle. You know what we did? We hit the ground. They continued their chase, and we got back up and started playing. That's how desensitized to the violence we were at that young age. And, I had both police officers and drug dealers point guns at me growing up. Yes, I mean it. I'm serious. Some of you might remember, the younger people won't, but I was taken down by police, and I went from covering the newscast to being like the lead story on the newscast. I'm not joking. I'm serious. I've been in handcuffs in the back of a cruiser many times, and you know what? I've never been charged with anything, but it was always a case of mistaken identity. I was a good kid. I had this really strict mom, Some of those experiences made me bitter, but at the same time, in the long run, they made me better for my future career. I had a lot of success covering crime in this town and breaking stories and getting exclusives. And we talk about how the media should reflect society and be diverse, but I think you also need a diversity in backgrounds. And one of the reasons I got into journalism was that I didn't like the way my neighborhood was covered in the media. I thought the portrayals were often unfair and inaccurate, and I promised myself that whether I was covering a story in Forest Hill or in the Falstaff public housing community, I would treat the people with the same respect. And over the years, I've had to remind some of my fellow journalists that just because the people in this neighborhood make less money, that doesn't make them lesser. And it's important that as we get out there in the world and we do these jobs that we remember that. And we talk about unbiased reporting. I know your professors here would have taught you that, but we all kind of get a bias sometimes from the way we were brought up, the kind of neighborhood we lived in. In university, I had a friend that was from Northern Ontario, and he kept making disparaging remarks about people in the Native community. And I called him on it, and I said, you can't say things like that. And he said to me, well, Dwight, I hang out with you. I'm not racist. I said, no, but where you come from, the Native and the Aboriginal people are the other in your neighborhood. If you're growing up next to me here in Toronto, you might be saying the same things about me. Stereotypes and generalizations have no place in our work. And I always say, not all people with a gun and a badge are racist, and not all young black men with baggy jeans and baseball caps are drug dealers. And it's really important that we understand that. A lot of my success came from being able to gain the respect of both police officers and people. While other reporters were busy trying to track down the family of the victim, they would sometimes call me, and I'd already be sitting in the living room doing the exclusive interview for the news that night. Detectives would say, Dwight, you might want to have a camera around this neighborhood in the morning because something is going down. And my aim was always to get the story right. And the best part for me was when I would cover a story and then like a year later it would end up in court and they'd put out the agreed statement of facts and it would match the story I put to air. I really took joy from trying to get the story right. And when you guys get out there, journalism, that should be the priority. When I sat where you sat at my graduation, 25 years ago, as you told everybody, the biggest worry I had was getting a job. And I think that's something you guys are thinking about today. And when I took that job as security at City TV, some of my classmates laughed at me. I said, but you know what? I don't have an uncle that's a vice president at CTV that's going to give me a job. But I wanted to get my foot in the door, and I was confident enough to know that I'd be able to work my way up. Yes, I had resumes in my back pocket for every producer in that newsroom because I knew that's where I wanted to be. And in the end, I was able to get in there. It's very unlikely that you're going to land your dream job right out of school, but the skills that your professors here at Humber have equipped you with are also transferable. Some of you are going to have multiple careers in different industries, and it's important that you leave yourself open to all kinds of opportunities when you get out there in that competitive job market. Graduation is a transformative moment in your lives. You have worked hard to achieve this, and you should be extremely proud of your accomplishments. Don't forget to thank those who helped you to get here. And I always end my motivational speeches to high school students with this. Your lives hold the potential to achieve what your talents will allow. And you, class of 2015, are on the cusp of realizing that potential. It has been an honor to have the opportunity to address you, and congratulations once again. Thank you.